What's up, everyone, and welcome to Creative Class Entrepreneurs. It's your girl, Jackie Clark, and today I'm here with the beautiful Rochelle James as we are going to talk about everything to do with the importance of well designed graphics. Rochelle, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So, before we get into all the cool questions, I just really want to ask you tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, and how did you come up with your company?
Okay, so of course, I'm Rochelle James from Rochelle James Designs. I've been doing graphics for over 16 years, tapping into web design as well as event styling. And
Nice.
so I'm originally from Jamaica, so I also, yeah.
You got the Caribbean. I love to see my people in these places. So, Rochelle, this is Creative Class Entrepreneurs. And one of the things we really want to go over is, the importance of well designed graphics, the importance of setting yourself up for success. Your photos, your videos, your social, your website needs to look on par, especially if you're charging some really high prices. If the graphics don't match, it doesn't make sense, right?
Mhm.
So,
That's true.
from your perspective, can you explain what are the key differences between graphic design, web design, and an event styling for those who may not know?
Okay, so graphic design, I would say that's pretty much your brand. That's what speaks for you when you're not in the room. So of course you want it to be visually appealing, eye-catching, and pretty much representing, you yourself as a company.
Mhm.
When it comes on to web design, pretty much it's the same. I would say it's the same structure, but more so from a functionality standpoint. So you want to make sure that your website, pretty much, if someone goes on your website, you're able to capture everything without having questions like, having to find out what is this about. So your website should really cover everything about your brand. Event styling, more so having similar factors, but tapping into more aesthetics and also creating an experience. So when you're styling for an event, you mostly want to focus on creating an experience for your target audience and the nature of the event.
Got you. And for events, like if you were, it's a random question, but for your events, if you were to do a branding event for your business, should your event colors and stuff match the theme of your website or no?
I would say you want to definitely keep it close to if you want to tweak it much, but I wouldn't do a dramatic change because, of course, you want to make sure that people who are aware of your brand will still recognize that the event is still tied in with it. So I would say if you want to do a tweak, probably, but not too much because you want to make sure that the cohesiveness and everything ties in.
Right. So there's an identity there, so people could still pinpoint
Exactly.
this is like an identity piece. I love that. So, how do you approach selecting color palettes, typography, and other design elements for client projects to ensure consistency and cohesiveness?
Okay, so when I'm creating, actually, I tap into the human senses. So, for example, you want to make sure visual appealing, so eye catching. Even if you're doing something food related, you want it to actually make it be like people can actually feel like they're tasting it. So, pretty much playing off human senses. And also, the next factor is, I'll say, typography. You want to make sure that it's based on the brand that you're doing. If you're doing a logo, you want to make sure that based on the nature of the, what would I say? It's not company, but nature of the,
The business, the
yes.
Mhm.
It's, the type matches that. For example, if you're doing something for skincare, of course, you don't want to use bold stuff that's jumping at you. You want to use something delicate, something with more curves, that kind of flow, and, will bring you into that. Colors also a main factor because, of course, colors play with emotions. So if you want to be fun, playful, happy, you're going to use vibrant colors. So color also is another factor that you want to take into consideration.
I love that. And it's funny. I was talking to another lady named Chloe of the Chloe Branding, and she talked a little bit
Uh-huh.
about colors and emotions and stuff like that too. But I really wanted to quickly dive into fonts. I love fonts. Like I took a graphic design course in college, and like small in the event program, but fonts are such a big thing. But can we talk about how
Yes.
your fonts really can make or break a brand? Like in your opinion, how can a font really not give the same energy that you're looking to give out? If you
Yes.
don't.
So I totally agree with you that funds have a major factor in how, the outcome of a design. And with that being said, that also goes back into the brand that you're designing for. So bold fonts you use for certain aspects, like, for example, if it's a trucking company, you're not going to use something that's small and cute. You know what I mean? Also, when it goes on to kids, you want to use something playful. So it's really like the lines of the font, the weight of the font, has a lot of, ties into how you choose that. And then another thing too, purchasing funds, I can't stress that enough. Purchasing funds has a lot to do with that as well.
Yes, there are some really great sites out there to purchase fonts. I live for fonts, and I never understood it. But when I was back in college, I remember my teacher said something to us about she will give us a zero if we use the basic fonts that come with the computer, like Playfair and certain fonts. She
Yeah.
every time she rolled in certain serifs, she's like, "I want you to go out and find fonts." And I was like, "What the hell? How do you find fonts?"
Yeah.
But once I got into it, I realized that there was a whole world, and it definitely changes the way your brand looks. And
Yes.
speaking of different platforms, what design software tools do you use to create your graphics, and also what kind of websites, if you wouldn't mind sharing, do you use to be inspired from or to purchase from?
Okay, so when it comes on to programs, Adobe Creative Cloud, my favorite being Adobe Illustrator, because I'm mostly like vectors. Like, of course, when you're doing logos, a lot of people don't know that as well. Logos should always be vector based because, of course, you're able to blow them up and it doesn't affect the resolution of it. So vectors always with Adobe Illustrator. And then my second favorite being Adobe Photoshop. With Photoshop, you're able to do, for me, I manipulate photos and anything advanced design related that I need to get done. And that's raster based, then that's when I will do Photoshop. Third, I would say it's not favorite, but it's one that I work with for editorials, and that's Adobe InDesign.
What are your
Yes.
thoughts on Canva? Because you really express everything Adobe Suite, and I'm hearing rumblings in the street that Canva is like the new Photoshop, and people are. I've been hearing rumors. Don't know if it's true. Don't quote me all, but I've been hearing different rumors that people feel Canva is going to take over Photoshop eventually. What are your personal thoughts on that?
So to be quite honest, I haven't tapped into Canva. Reason being, Canva is really something that makes stuff way easier for you. It's pretty much done for you, and it makes someone who's not even a graphic designer can possibly feel like they're a graphic designer. With me, I don't tap into Canva because everything that I do, I literally create from scratch. The inspiration comes from my brain, so I when I do it, when I design that way, it helps me a lot. So Canva is like add in here, drop in here. That's really not me because I'm old school with designing from scratch and getting everything done. But it's really a great tool, and I don't knock people for using it. But I personally just don't.
It's funny because a few graphic designers or graphic creators, as I like to call them, a lot of them are like they stick to the Adobe suites, the Photoshops, because they're like, there's a different level. And to your point, not to shade, I use Canva, so I'm not even gonna throw any shade. This was built on Canva, the little background stuff, but I do use Illustrator. I'm not a graphic designer. I just know how to finesse really well.
Yeah.
And I have an art background in fashion design in particular. So I know how to sew, draft elements of design, and my father's an artist. But I too hear these things that it's like, true people, like if you're a true graphic designer, you're a true creative, you will
Yeah.
use these things. And I know when I created my planners and all those stuff, I really at first built it in Canva, but then as I talked to graphic designers who were going to help me produce it on different level, they're like, you need to use Illustrator. So I became an Illustrator whiz, and it's probably my favorite out of all of
Yeah.
the Adobe suite. So
Love Illustrator.
I love
Mhm.
that you said that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, and to tap into that too, being in the industry as a graphic designer, you also need to be careful of how you will use Canva. For example, I have clients that are corporate companies, established companies, and they strive for uniqueness. And they have their legal team that has to pass this and pass that. So we have to be very careful with playing with apps that actually make it easy and having it not be unique to their brand. Because you
Yes.
don't want to pull something from Canva like a graphic element and then you have 1,000 people that have that same graphic element being used. So as a graphic designer, based on your clientele, and you have to be careful of how you play with third party apps like that and not creating from scratch with the design programs.
And you know what? For those listening, you said something that's extremely important when it comes to developing your brand. Yes, Canva makes it easier. Creative Market, Etsy, you could buy a lot of templates, but you really, if you are going to buy templates, and I've always been a believer of this. I'm a template person. I believe in working smart, not hard. However, one of the things that I do is you need to change the fonts, you need to change the colors, and you need to switch up the
Mhm.
layout. Yes, that you
Exactly.
like something, but you need to make it your own, because I promise you, I design stuff on Canva and people are like, "Oh my
Yeah,
god, where did you get this template?" I made it. Like, I bought this element
exactly.
stuff. I am inspired by art and I do make a mood board. But yeah, I'm like, "Oh, I like this kind of like how they wrote that there, but I'm going to go and change the font of that. I might move it to the bottom third, lower thirds of the design, and I'm going to completely switch the colors, because what I could tell when I go online and I'm like, that's a Canva graphic, because I'm like, I've
Yes,
seen this logo or I've seen that particular thing 30,000 times. So if you're going to use these templates and these websites, nothing's wrong with them, but for your brand, make it your own. There's nothing wrong with reinventing
agree.
the wheel. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I believe adding glitter to it, and that glitter is making it authentic to you.
There you go. I totally agree 100%. Hmm.
Um, and I just wanted to pin that there, because I'm telling you, like you just said, we talked and another on this conference we talked with a girl named Ivy McNeil, and she is a legal representative, and she talks a lot about brand legalities. And one of the things you just mentioned, a lot of these things have to go through lawyers. And so if
Yes,
you're going to if it's going to go through a lawyer, or you don't want to copy an aesthetic, and somebody could sue you and be like, you're stealing their brand identity and throwing a different name on it. So you have to do the research. Um,
yes,
you talked about clients, and you talked about you work with a lot of clients, and you got to go through, legal profiles. You talked about working with high profile clients, and going through legal teams. Are there any clients like that you can share that you've worked with, that you've helped develop their brands or create graphics for?
yes. So I've done graphics for BT Sisters, as Tyler Perry. I've done graphics with, some that I can't talk about. I've signed NDAs, but yes. And I've done graphics for quite a few, Tammy Rivera, um, Coco Jones, just to name a few, and also tapping into some of my work that I will do. It's really tied into working with other event planners as well.
Mm.
So when I get those jobs, like it's mean I'm doing branding, event branding, and then they're mostly doing like the planning of the event. With one of my favorite being Dazami parties, they're located in Atlanta.
Nice. Well, congratulations on that. And, I think people don't, they think of graphics and design to just be website and Instagram based. People don't realize, even when you're having an event, you need to look at the design and graphic of what that's going to look like, in terms of signage, in terms of backdrops, in terms of all of those things. I think a lot of people create an event and they forget there's a whole design side that they
Yes.
have to put together. So with that being said, what are the key design elements every brand needs?
Key design elements every brand needs. I would say well, when I speaking from my what when I design basically with oops, just I just froze up. I
Please.
have to go again.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you want to ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Of course, no problem.
Okay.
So speaking of that, what are some of the key design elements that every brand needs?
When you say key design elements, like to make it visually appealing, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I would say, of course, typography, you definitely want to play with that. If you want to do illustrations or images, you want to make sure that those are tied in as well. Your color palettes has a lot to do with that. And pretty much taking into consideration when I design, my main purpose and focus is function.
Mm.
Make sure it's functionality if it's a website, communication, being able to communicate with the target audience and making sure that's met, like the client's goal with that, and also aesthetics, because that too also has a lot to do with creating a purposeful design.
I love that. And how do you ensure that the designs and styling projects are responsive and accessible across different devices and platforms? Because I know, I was working on my website the other day, and a lot of us focus just on the website, but forget that we have to optimize for a cell phone and optimize our site for, a tablet. So how do we make sure our designs are responsive across all different types of platforms?
So pretty much these days, most of the platforms they do offer, that functionality where when you create the website, it actually pulls it into having it be a mobile, making it mobile friendly as well. So you, as a creative, when you're tweaking the mobile section of that, you want to be mindful, like, okay, this will be on a screen as opposed to, on a smaller screen. So you want to make sure that, the text is a bit, larger in size to be readable. You want to make sure that the logo is also, you're able to see it properly and stuff like that. You have to be mindful. So as I said, it's not really, I wouldn't say, it's not a challenge to get that done. It's just something that you as a creative have to be mindful of when doing.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And well, as we talk about that, how does having great graphics impact the response and respect from your audience?
So go back to what I said, where your brand is pretty much what speaks for you when you're not in the room. It represents you. So for example, for me, like for example, I choose even with food, like I'll choose to go to a restaurant just because of their logo, just because of how it's presented. So with that being said, I shouldn't be doing that, but I would say I judge them because I'm like, they put some thought into what they're doing. So I'll probably choose them over someone else who I didn't see where their brand is even enticing me. So it goes back to what I said, tying into the human senses when designing and being mindful of that.
Absolutely, because I tell people all the time, we buy into emotions. You mentioned emotions earlier.
Yes,
We
with
buy
colors
emotions.
too.
You buy a certain deodorant because it makes you smell good. You go to a certain restaurant. Like I know every time I go to Moxie's, I order the same thing because it's a good quality dish. It never fails. So the brand needs to represent the same thing. Like what I always look at things like what is the end result I want a client to walk away with, somebody to come home with and walk away with. Um,
Yes.
but as a creative, as a designer in many fields, from the web to graphic to event styling, you work with a ton of different clients that have a ton of different needs. And sometimes, in my opinion, which are not facts, but I find when I work with design clients from a pitch deck design, I design a lot of pitch decks and sponsorship for my agency and stuff. I tend
Okay.
to find, you know, the vision the client has sometimes isn't always the same vision that I have because we think differently. So, how can clients help a designer get to their desired result a lot faster? So, what can clients provide you as a graphic designer or any graphic person that they're working with? What tools can they provide you that would help you make sure that you achieve the result they're looking for?
So that's a good question. And pretty much what works for me, I think, is really understanding,
Mm.
having a conversation with the client. So, and having proper structure and system in place. So, for example, if a client reaches out to me and they're like, okay, I want to get a logo done, my first thing is to get on a call with them. I have some clients that are not verbal, they prefer to do it through email. So, with that being said, I have a detailed questionnaire so that we both can be on the same page as to what they're looking for. On the other hand, I have clients that they're like, I don't know what I want. I don't know. I have nothing at all. But at least I know they should have at least an inspiration. So I'll ask them, what brand would you compare, or who do you aim to be, not to say be like, but aspire to, that draws your attention, and then I can go from there. So the more details I think you provide, the better it's able to get your design, to be on the same path with getting the design to how they want it. Yes.
Absolutely. So I would say I could echo to that, providing a mood board or color palettes. Like you just said, if there's inspiration,
Yes.
pull those things together. Give your designer as much information as possible.
As much.
Like,
And as I said, the system that I use is providing a detailed questionnaire just to make sure we're on the same path. And just a verbal conversation helps a lot. And once I get all of that, the more information I'm provided, the better it is.
absolutely. So how do you stay inspired and motivated in your creative process, continuously improve your skill sets, and stay up to date with industry trends? Because, like I said, Canva's taking over. There's so many
Yeah.
different things that are taking over. How do you stay motivated to be like, you know what, there's still space for me. I can still do this.
So motivation, I do a lot of research. I like reading online, on reading online, and I also my environment really, like I'm always tapped into my environment. Like if I'm just driving, I'm always looking at logos. I'm always looking at new trends, events as well. Like festivals that's happening. I pay attention to how they're branding, what they're gravitating to with colors. So just really my environment, I would say, helps me a lot.
Mm.
Yes.
That's really good. And, inspiration is key. Like, I love Pinterest. I still,
Oh yes. How could I forget Pinterest?
I'm
Yes.
still a Pinterest girl. Honestly, oddly enough, I'm still a Tumblr girl. Tumblr has some really,
Really?
yeah, I love,
Never tapped into Tumblr.
I find some really cool things on Tumblr.
Yes.
So with that being said, I know we're slowly wrapping up, and I feel like we could be here all day. And graphics help engage and retain an audience. Like we know nowadays, everybody is. I think is less than 140 characters that people are willing to read, and so everybody's in
Yes.
a visual space. So, what can you talk about the importance of why ensuring your graphics are well designed and well thought out are important to maintaining your audience?
Yes, I do agree with basically what you're saying with people, attention span. So I will say, I always say to my clients, less is more. You don't have to do a lot to bring across your message. As I said, with your colors, just with your text, just with your typography, you don't have to add like a whole bunch of stuff extra to get your message across. So less is more, and that too can also be achieved by, the use of less colors if you're not, you know what I mean?
I get
Yeah.
And then last question I want to ask you is, a lot of us get stuck in a certain color, stuck in a certain font, or we started our brand here, but we realize that we have to pivot. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of sometimes rebranding? Like, because a lot of I've heard clients tell me before, I don't want to rebrand my company. I'm known for this and I'm known for that, but they're still stuck in an old way, but they're trying to get into where the world is moving now. Can you talk about the importance of rebranding through graphic design?
Yes. So rebranding is good. I do recommend that, but not too much. And it ties back into once you create an effective brand from the get-go, revamping will not be an issue that you will have to worry about ever so often. For example, I can speak on my behalf. Like I've had my logo for the longest. The most I'll tweak is probably color, and I haven't done that in a while. Reason being, like your logo, your brand is known for what you are. So you have people who already your brand is seasoned with them and they know that that's you. So if you're even going to revamp, you want to be mindful that okay, you can do like a type tweak or a color tweak, but nothing too crazy. I do understand that there's some clients that do want just a full fresh look, and that too is fine in itself, but just be mindful not to just be switching up and changing like when you feel like, you know what I mean?
So
If
then,
you took a break, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
If you took a break from business and you want to come back fresh, like stuff like that, then I would say yes. But if you're, up and going, everything is going and you just change in the middle, like stuff like that, I don't recommend. Like your logo, your brand is known for what you are. So you have people who already your brand is seasoned with them and they know that that's you. So if you're even going to revamp, you want to be mindful that okay, you can do like a type tweak or a color tweak, but nothing too crazy. I do understand that there's some clients that do want just a full fresh look, and that too is fine in itself, but just be mindful not to just be switching up and changing like when you feel like, you know what I mean?
So
If you're
then,
you could break, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
If you took a break from business and you want to come back fresh, like stuff like that, then I would say yes. But if you're, up and going, everything is going and you just change in the middle, like stuff like that, I don't recommend.
So then this brings me to a question, because I've seen a lot of people do this on social. Their brand colors is one thing, but then their Instagram feed is like all blue. Nine boxes are blue, nine boxes are purple, nine boxes are yellow. Does that Is that good? Should you be doing that? Or like you said, I see people, they switch up sometimes and it's just like their colors on their Instagram is completely different than their branding. Is should we be following those trends of switching up colors for social?
Personally, that's not something that I like, and I don't recommend that, because you want to have cohesiveness throughout your brand, and also it goes back to being visually appealing. Because I have, like, I'll go on a Instagram, and just by it brings off like it's not organized, and then that speaks a lot about the brand that it represents. Like, there's no uniformity, like stuff is just not, it's not speaking to me because it's not smooth flowing, like, yeah.
Interesting. So what
Mhm.
you're saying is try to keep your brand aesthetic, as
Aesthetics of it, exactly.
possible across as many platforms as possible. I tell people all the time, if you want to play the games, you can play that in your stories because stories disappear after 24
Oh yeah.
hours. But I tell
Mhm.
people, look at your Instagram page as your small website. It's the first website to your bigger website because people will look
Exactly.
there first before they get to the bigger website. So good to know because I've been seeing these new trends and I'm like, oh, this is cute, these colors, but I'm like, do I want to invest in this where my whole
Exactly.
looks
Uh-huh.
like a bag of Skittles and I don't know what to do.
Yes,
Good.
you have people that just won't even take your brand serious just for that. So you have to be careful, Because, for
Interesting.
example, if you first, I'll just roughly, like, if you're interested in purchasing a beauty product, and compared to one that is clean and following your, like, just having the whole aesthetics, as opposed to one that has all these colors not matching, you're gonna go with the one that's more visually appealing. So stuff like that you have to be mindful for in business.
I love that and totally resonate. Well, this was such an amazing conversation, and I'm so grateful that you were able to give us some time in your busy schedule to, offload some key information for us. So, for people who may want to book you for design work or just follow you, how can they follow you on social and how can they connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram. I'm R James Designs. My website, www.rochellemesdesigns.com. I'm still revamping. It's taking a little while because I'm busy making everyone else stuff beautiful. So that will be up and running within a month. I'm still working on it. And Facebook, I'm not really on Facebook, but I plan to, be more active on it within the year. And that too is also R James Designs.
Well, thank you guys so much. If you guys have any questions for Rochelle, you want to know more about her business, don't forget to check her out on Instagram, go to her website, book a call, book a DM if you're looking to revamp your business or looking to get event styling for all those who are into events, but you don't think of the graphics. Rochelle is your girl. She has the top clients and she does the best work. So, Rochelle, thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.